You broke some news this morning. You used a word that none of us knew what it meant until we all looked it up, but it doesn't sound great. Kyrie and the Brooklyn Nets are at impasse in conversations about his future in Brooklyn, clearing the way for seven-time All-Star to consider the open market. Lakers and Knicks expected to emerge among potential suitors. Okay, this is obviously top-of-the-line conversation in every sports show because it's Kyrie. This obviously involves Kevin Durant and potentially LeBron James, who he had been complimenting on podcasts in the past. Where's Kevin? What does this mean? Is this all a leverage play by Kyrie's people to have you leak this information, or is this legitimately happen? I thought he and KD were locked at the hip now.
No, this is there's no leverage play. This is from multiple sources on the situation from every single angle that you can think of. But okay. Kyrie Irving, after the Nets season ended, he was very vocal as far as his end desire being, returning to Brooklyn, planning to be in Brooklyn. And he said, I believe a month before the season ended, that I don't plan on leaving Kevin. I don't plan on leaving seven, I believe is what he said, meaning Kevin Durant. And, those are two guys that signed with Brooklyn together in 2019. They've been attached as far as, wanting to play with each other. And to my knowledge, that has not changed. And sources tell me that still remains the goal at the end of the day, is that, Kyrie Irving has wanted to stay with the Nets, and his goal has been to want to be with Kevin Durant, and that goal has not changed. But as far as the conversations that have taken place so far in the talks between Kyrie Irving and the Nets officials, and he's got a player option decision next week that he has to decide on. But these are more conversations about in general, right? When you're talking about life, when you're talking, is this the right team for you moving forward in the future, whether that's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, is this the right team? And both sides have reached an impasse in those conversations. And that has led, multiple sources have told me that that has led a serious opening for him to hit the open market and possibly join a team such as the Lakers, the Knicks, the Clippers, and find a home. At the end of the day, Kyrie Irving, his intent has been to find a home. And if he does not feel and if both sides, the Nets and Kyrie Irving, do not feel in their conversations that this is home for him, he is going to be a free agent, and he will be, moving on.
Come on to Indiana, Kyrie. Wow. Love to have you here. Impasse, obviously the definition is a situation in which no progress is possible, especially because of disagreement or a deadlock. So this is like no progress is possible, which would mean you use that word on purpose, which is you're an incredibly intelligent guy. So you're expecting next week that Kyrie will use his player option, be a free agent. Will Brooklyn still be in the picture in the NBA if he does that? Or do they still have the opportunity to negotiate? Or is it just open bidding at that point and whatever the hell he wants to do? And is it going to be Kyrie and LeBron back together, a little bit more mature? Kyrie said in that podcast, he said, if I knew what I knew now, that would have ended much differently, and they would have had a never-ending supply of titles or something like that. Is that all indications and all signs pointing to that maybe happening? Because that would be an explosion of news in the NBA world, right, Shams?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyrie said it openly as far as his public comments, about LeBron and the leader that he views LeBron. And I think a lot has been made about their relationship, especially the way Kyrie Irving left the Nets. I mean, not the Nets, the Cavaliers. The way that Kyrie Irving left the Cavs as far as asking out and ending up in Boston, there was a lot made about their relationship. But, sources have told me that was never a fractured relationship. That's always been a dialogue that has existed between those two. And so that is, of course, going to be a factor in all of this. But overall, when you look at Kyrie Irving has until June 29th, so I believe that's next Wednesday, to make a decision on his $37 million player option. Now, he could opt out, and the problem with opting out is that if you end up with the Lakers, the Clippers, a team like that, they would not be able to do a sign and trade because of the hard cap. So there's a hard cap is a collective bargaining salary cap situation that I'm not going to bore you guys with. But essentially, the most likely path for him to end up with the Lakers or the Clippers would likely have to be an opt-in and trade. And that obviously he would need the Nets, they would need to work together on this opt-in and trade. The Nets would have to receive something back as well in all this. So that is the likelier route. The other route could also be, opting out and signing for less money. And we're talking about a guy in Kyrie Irving that did end up, he left, I believe, around 18-ish, 20-ish million dollars on the table this year because of the vaccine mandate that I've discussed and we've discussed on this show at length over the course of the NBA season.
Yeah, talks
So
about New York
there's been a
City
proven
Council.
track
Yeah,
record
exactly.
of Kai making decisions based on what's best, what he feels is best for him, his values and his mindset, his family, his personal choices. I think the Nets were also delivered that message as far as, and they've seen it from him as far as he's going to make decisions based on family, based on inclusion. And clearly that just, it doesn't seem like that's there right now, in these conversations.
Final question here, and I can't thank you enough for joining us. I know you're incredibly busy. I saw you shoo off like 4 calls while you were giving us that answer. Is this because, are they at the impasse because of, like, he didn't play, and the narrative outside, especially if you listen to like Stephen A. and others that are very deep in the NBA world and I think very influential, this guy doesn't show up to work, is what everybody says. This guy chooses not to show up to work, doesn't show up to work. In his mind, he's doing something vastly different, but at the end of the day, that is how it could be viewed by some people. Is that what the Nets are saying to Kyrie Irving? Is Kyrie feeling disrespected that that's being said to him? Is that why the impasse has taken place?
Well, Sean Marks said after the Nets season ended that we want players that can be available. We want guys to be here full time. That is of the utmost concern. I mean, when you think about the optics of Kyrie, when that press conference was done, it clear that there were some intended messages being thrown out there, not just to Kyrie but the entire roster. Like, the players we want on this team have to be available all the time. And obviously the one guy that there was proof of, like, Kyrie Irving missed pretty much half the season, more than half the season. I believe played in 26, 29 games. Largely due to the inability to play at home because he did not comply with the vaccine mandate. And that was a decision that he made. And the Nets had at one point sent him away until he's a full-time player, then brought him back. Because at the end of the day, Kyrie Irving makes your basketball team better, and you have a better chance at winning basketball games with Kyrie Irving on the floor than him not on the floor. But there's no question. I mean, the fact that Sean Marks had said that in the press conference, that has, undoubtedly been, part of all this is like availability, how much are you going to be available, all those are all concerns from, when you look at any team that would want to bring in a player that has missed way more games than he's played the last 3 seasons. That is definitely a conversation always.
And I wonder, I don't know Kyrie Irving personally, but just from watching as a fan, like, if he feels disrespected by somebody, I feel like there's potentially a hey, why don't you fuck off forever?
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I can't wait to watch this unfold. If him and LeBron get back together and have success, it's going to be loud.